Adele Wang here today, and today I am so excited to introduce you the DeKalb Symphony Orchestra's newest conductor. Yes, we are coming out of hibernation. We have been locked away for 2 years, and we have a concert coming up with Dr. Paul Bhasin. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Adele.
It's going to be a blast. So we thought we would just get on here and share with you some cool factoids about the upcoming concert. We've got a great program coming up with Sibelius, Hertel, and Jose Moncayo, which I think is a really cool piece. And because you guys know, I love interviewing interesting, fascinating people, and conductors are a fascinating bunch. So I thought I would ask Paul some cool questions about what it's like to be a conductor. For those of you who don't know Paul, he is the conductor at Emory, and he does the Emory Youth Symphony. He's involved with a lot of, there's Allstate. You've been around the world in China. You've done all kinds of cool things with Atlanta Symphony. So we have somebody who's not only a conductor, but can score films and is a fabulous trumpeter. So you get triple threat today. So, Paul, I would love to hear a little bit about what this up concert's going to have. I've got the violin part. For those of you who don't know, I'm the principal second violin. This is, for those of you who can't see, the Sibelius second violin part. And it's got lots of notes. And so I thought it would be fun for those of you who have never seen a conductor score. Maybe, Paul, you can tell us a little bit about what it's like to conduct this amazing piece, a little bit about Sibelius, maybe the hardest parts for a conductor. Is there a part that is a really hard, what runs through your mind as you're conducting? Take it away and tell us a little bit about this piece.
Sure. Adele is definitely summarizing the concert absolutely perfectly with the Baroque Concerto by Hertel, which features Michael Tachon and Elizabeth Cook-Tachon from the Atlanta Symphony, associate principal trumpet and principal oboe. They'll be our soloists. So we have 2 soloists that evening. Also the Moncayo Wapango, which is a piece based upon Veracruzana folk popular melodies, rhythms, patterns, and it's a really infectious and fun piece, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the main piece on the program is the Sibelius Second Symphony. And Sibelius, for those, many of your listeners, I'm sure, know Sibelius's music, but his first symphony was seen as predominantly on the darker side. And one of his greatest fans encouraged him to think about composing something that perhaps was a little bit more optimistic. This Baron Axel Karpelan, who wrote to Sibelius and said, we are going to find a way to raise the funds to send you to Italy. So I have a quotation from a letter shared between the 2 of them where the Baron said to Sibelius, and I quote, "You've been sitting at home for quite a while, Mr. Sibelius. It's high time for you to travel. You'll spend the late autumn and winter in Italy, a country where one learns cantabile, balance, harmony, plasticity and symmetry of lines, a country where everything's beautiful, even the ugly. You'll remember what Italy meant for Tchaikovsky's development and for Richard Strauss." But when Sibelius arrived in Italy, he was there for several months. It was in a mountain villa near Rapallo. And this is a part of Italy that is just so beautiful that the sunny, unabashed happiness of the Second Symphony, the roots of it are very clear if you just look at a postcard of Rapallo in Italy. And so this composer known for darkness and storminess created something that in our literature as orchestral musicians is seen as one of the most optimistic and sunny and powerful statements of happiness that musicians could ever ask for, and audiences as well. Why don't I share a page from the score and just talk a little bit about how we interact with that?
Yes. Many of the audience have never seen a conductor's score. And maybe you could share us, a page from this, and maybe, what is it the most challenging part of this piece to lead a group of 50-some people or whatever? What runs through your mind? How did you prepare to conduct this piece? I mean, it's quite if you haven't heard this symphony before, it's pretty intense.
I will share the score, and So you asked about what's the challenging part about this score. I would say challenging, but also very satisfying is after a long buildup in the third movement, Allegro vivace, all of this tension, excitement, never stopping kind of turbulence of that third movement reaches this fever pitch. But then all of that built up energy, all of that built up momentum and intensity is released at the beginning of the finale in one of the most satisfying starts of any major romantic symphony's finales. And what we have here is this beautiful 3-note theme that I'll talk about at the concert as a sort of running thread through the piece. And you can see the 3-note theme, da da dee da da dee dee. This 3-note theme receives its most optimistic and stirring treatment in the entire piece. But here you notice that in the finale, the publisher will write as a courtesy the names of all the instruments again. So some more score reading trivia and information for our audiences. That Italy isn't just the place where Sibelius wrote the beginnings of this piece and worked on it for several months, but it's also the country that sort of governs our nomenclature, our vocabulary, our systems of writing music, of notating it. So you'll notice that Allegro moderato is an Italian tempo indication. Finale is Italian. All the instruments are using Italian names. Corni means horns. Fagotti means bassoons, etc. But something people may not know is that a conductor, when they're reading the score with all of these dozens of parts, has to transpose many of the lines. And what that means is there may be a note printed here. Let's say this note here is a C in the clarinet part, but the note that is written and the note that sounds are completely different notes. So it says clarinetti in duet, clarinetti in A. That means 2 clarinets in the key of A. So when they play a C, it sounds an A on the piano. So I, as the conductor, need to be able to read up and down every single measure and know exactly what the sounding pitches are, but then communicate instantly with the musicians so that they know what note they have printed. So it's sort of like...
Why do they do that? Why not print exactly what's played?
Because of the historical conventions surrounding each of these instruments and its own sort of mechanical history. So for example, horns are in F traditionally. And the reason for that is the length of tubing that the horn is composed of when it plays its most fundamental pitch, that's an F. And so what the ancient horn players would do, or not so ancient, if you think about the early modern period, Renaissance, and the Baroque, they would take interchangeable tubing lengths and attach them or detach them from their instruments to lengthen or shorten them so that they would play different fundamental pitches. In the middle of a piece, the key
that sounds
of the
like too much work.
Change too.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of mental things that us as musicians never see that goes through a conductor's mind. I'm surprised you don't have smoke coming out of your head as you're doing this. What do you think is the most difficult part? If the audience was going to listen into, oh my gosh, this is going to be the most challenging part to conduct, what part of the symphony would you say that is, from your point of view, as you prepare for this concert?
Well, when we look at the third movement, the Allegro vivace, this movement moves at such a lightning quick pace that the tempo is so fast. The tempo is 1, 1, 1, 1. And anytime you move that quickly, the number of notes are so complex, so virtuosic, that from a technical point of view, I would say this Allegro vivace, the third movement, is the most challenging to coordinate.
This movement moves really fast. So folks, Sibelius, it's an amazing piece. It's very intense. To me, it feels very melodramatic. I think of a soap opera. And it's nice to have it balanced with a palette of this lighter piece, this concerto trumpet. And I'm looking forward to the ASO players. And anything you want to share with the audience about this one? It's a very fun, light, you almost want to get up and dance to it, some sort
That's
of,
right.
and so wouldn't it be nice if the audience feels so inspired to get up off your out of your chair and dance around a little bit?
It is a very danceable piece. And one of the reasons I wanted to start with that is I think an orchestra like the DeKalb Symphony has a special opportunity with each of its concerts to expose and enrich the lives of its audience members with something perhaps that has a little bit more thematic breadth than a traditional orchestra concert. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is the pairings of the pieces and the meaning of the details of each piece and the sort of connection of those details. An orchestra like the DeKalb Symphony can be really daring on how they put pieces together and how the audience is meant then to digest those pieces. And Wapango is the kind of piece where, rhythmically speaking, it's so precise, so fun, so danceable, like you say, Adele. But what a lot of people may not know about that piece is that Moncayo, the composer, was not an expert in the ethnomusicological traditions of Veracruz. Rather, he approached the writing of the piece like an ethnographer, like a field recorder, where he took melodies and rhythms from the communities and synthesized them from their oral tradition roots that are not notated and put them in to an almost Western classical framework. And the result is this marriage of indigenous traditional music from Mexico and what we do in on the symphony stage. And Bernstein met Moncayo actually as students at Tanglewood. And Bernstein loved Moncayo's playing around with these Latin American rhythms. And in fact, in Bernstein's original score to West Side Story, when he gets to the famous song America, he writes Tempo di Wapango, getting the idea from Moncayo, who he met as students.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's neat how artists through the ages have done synthesis. I mean, it's kind of like a modern day DJ where they take mashups of different songs and combine them, and now we enjoy them in a new way. So innovation's been going on a long time, and nothing's created in a vacuum. Artists often expand and get ideas, inspiration from previous art, and combining them in new, fun ways. And it's always neat to see the evolution of things. Instead, things aren't just born from nothing, and you can almost trace the lineage of music in movies, symphonies back through the ages. It's fascinating. It is.
But I also feel that when you as a musician sit down to play that piece, you develop a personal relationship with it through your own interpretation of it. And your connection to it becomes alive. It becomes a thing that changes. And so what's fun to conduct when in a piece like that, or even the Sibelius, is experiencing in real time the original contributions of the musicians and then facilitating that conversation and unifying that conversation. That's what live performance is about. So you asked, why should people come to a concert perhaps? Well, why a live orchestral concert? The reason is what's happening on stage, it can only happen at that moment with those people. It can be recorded, it's true, but the kinesthetic energy of the moment is undeniable when you're in the audience. You can feel all of these heartbeats on stage doing something creative and original under pressure in front of people. It's sort of like a moment in time that's creatively so inspiring that you feel the energy from the audience. And I love being an audience member. And I feel like after the last couple of years, we all crave with all of this desire to come back.
Absolutely. Come out and see real humans again and experience, because some people, all they know is recordings. And what I love about performance, it's a moment in time that's never coming back. Mm-hmm. You were either there or you're not. And that moment, depending on the phase of the moon and your day and who you're with and who's on stage, it's never going to be the same. No two live performances are ever the same, no matter, even if you have the same performers or the same conductor or the same piece. Like life is constantly alive in the moment. And I think live music, live performances are the same. Otherwise, we'd all sit home and just watch reruns on TV or listen to the same recordings over and over. But I feel like we're losing something in our humanity of coming together and experiencing something together, not just by yourself in your car as you're sitting on 285, but what's it like to share in this moment with your friends or your family? And what's fascinating is even, 10 people in a concert will all hear something different, or different things struck people different ways. And that's always fascinating. It's like if you're at a dinner party, everybody leaves that dinner party with a different experience. That's something that it's an experience of life rather than a technical production of it.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. And we need that back in our society. And I think the role that an orchestra plays in that process is undeniable, because it also facilitates nonverbal communication with one another. And our society needs to remember and preserve the power of that.
Absolutely. And I think it's different when you know the people on stage versus an orchestra that coming from out of town, you don't know any of them personally. But if you've got a family member on stage and they're sharing this moment with you, with your family, it's different than a group that you don't know. So that's the nature of art. And so I'm very excited. So I think, so come out, everybody. It's this coming Tuesday.
Find us online, DeKalb Symphony. You can find us through a Google search and can join us hopefully Tuesday night. The concert begins at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Come on over. It's going to be fun.